Just some of this, I've forgotten where I saw the story, but one of the questions about the energy consumption of AI systems and data centers and the and contributions to energy use.
So do you also want to give people I don't know whether you want me to take a lead in that, or do you want to share with the with everyone in terms of what
I
you heard about
I
it?
think I saw an article. I think it was New Scientist. It might have been New Scientist or The Guardian, but basically, I think the predictions are: is it tripling? And now you put me on the spot because I can't remember but I think it was like tripling in the energy use of if AI gets to take off in the way that everyone's anticipating, we're looking, I think, 3 to 4 fold increase in energy demand just to feed the systems and centers and
Yeah. Yeah.
um so
So in yeah, 100%. It's very interesting that you bring that up. I was having a conversation with a gentleman from a Scottish firm called Jump Digital. They're like one of the largest educational providers in the world, but no one you would never hear of their name, because they very much work behind the scenes. We've been working with each other for about a year and a half right now. And we were having a similar conversation in terms of it's quite interesting how everyone's talking about AI, but no one's talking about being green and sustainability in the tech world, because very few people. I mean, there was a good conversation that was had around like cryptocurrency around 3 4 years ago when people were talking about the environmental impact of cryptocurrency. But it's like, what is the environmental impact when we send an email? What is the environmental impact when you open a new tab? And all this does require large data centers. I know Ireland have actually banned. I don't know about banned, but I know there's a strong conversation. They might have banned it. I think I was headline reading at the time. Essentially, the creation of any additional data centers in the country because of the sheer amount of water usage, the energy consumption, and whatnot. And it's something which is, to your point, Mike, it's very much a case where it has a massive impact environmentally. And I think we're slowly starting to see climate tech and green tech and sustainable tech, what their official names are. I'm not sure the vernacular, but we're starting to see them come out, and it's great that you actually bring it up because I think it's a very, very important thing. And I'm actually considering maybe swapping out one of the sessions for the next cohort, and obviously we'll be sharing the recording with everyone who's previously attended, so you all will be up to date in terms of the environmental impact. And what does sustainability look like in terms of using large language models? Because bear in mind, we have a piece of software that is ingesting and pulling knowledge from over 30 billion, in many cases more, data points. And so that data has to be stored somewhere, that processing has to be done somewhere else. And so that's naturally going to use electricity, water cooling, and a whole bunch of other factors. Um, but yeah, I think, has anyone else sort of contemplated the potential ramifications and effects of like using these AI tools and whatnot here? Completely fine if you haven't, completely fine if you have. I'm just curious to see whether it's on sort of the group conscious in that sense. Please do feel free to put it in the chat, come off mute, share your thoughts before we crack on in a second. No, just Mike. Mike, I guess you're the sustainability guy in a way, in that
the
sense.
awkward one.
No, no, no. I think it's important. I think it's not a common conversation because right now we're at the beginning of like, well, we're still at the very early stages of this new internet, essentially internet 3.0. 2.0, 3.0, I'm not sure what version we're on right now. And everyone's saying hailing this as like, when the internet came about, it caused mass societal change. Now AI is here, generative AI is here, it's causing another, societal change. Um, and I think as we get down the line, there's going to be more conversation around, okay, well, we're using all this power, all this energy, and that sort of stuff. We need to now start thinking about the wider ramifications and how does that fit into our lives. But we'll put a pin in that. More than happy to revisit it at the end of the session. And if you have just joined, welcome. Please do ensure to check in. You can do that by scanning the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can hit the form that I've put in the chat. There are 23 of us. So thank you very much for joining me on your lunch break, your evening, or your morning if you're calling from the West Coast of America or that side of the world. My name is Faz. I'm one of the founders here at Coding with Codex. The reason why we ask you to check in is so that you can receive our recap emails, and also we can track your attendance such that at the end of the course, we have a We issue certificates of completion that are accredited by our accreditation organization, third party, STEM.org. And we're also working with a few British universities to put their seal of approval on there. Fingers crossed we can get that sorted by the time you guys finish. We are 2 sessions away from completion. So today, we're going to crack on. It's 7 past. I've slightly rambled over, but you're going to have to get used to that because that's kind of what I do in these sessions. We're going to be looking at how we can turn large language models into our personal coaches. And we're going to be particularly focusing down on the skill of copywriting. And the subtitle to this is how to craft the perfect message for any occasion. But one thing I want to make explicitly clear is that we're going to be covering things that have essentially compounded and built upon previous topics that we've covered throughout, sessions 1 to 7. Now, if this is your first session, welcome. Do not worry. You can always catch up, but we'll be going at a rate that hopefully you'll be able to understand. And if you have any questions at any point, please do feel free to put it in a chat. And if we don't get to whilst we're going through the session, we'll definitely cover it at the end. So copywriting, what is it? You might have heard the term copyright, but it's very different to when it comes to legal protection of a certain identity. Copywriting is actually something that everyone here has been exposed to, whether you know it or not. It's the art of persuading readers to taking a specific action, such as buying a product, subscribing to a newsletter. An example of copywriting would be this course description when you saw it on Perks at Work or Community Line Academy. Essentially, a good copywriter is someone who understands their audience and is able to use persuasive techniques to encourage a particular action. It's an incredibly powerful tool that we recommend that everyone try and learn as a skill set to have in their sort of tool set, so to speak, a skill to have in their tool set, because it happens when it comes to, it's incredibly important when it comes to writing emails. It's incredibly important when it comes to doing comms for memos and whatnot, conveying your ideas and getting the buy-in of colleagues and whatnot. So it's a fantastic skill to have. Again, recapping in terms of the applications of copywriting, in this particular session, we're going to be dealing with ChatGPT. So I'm going to share a quick link to this. Please do feel free, whilst I ramble on, feel free to just quickly log in. If you haven't already created an account, create it. You don't need to pay for anything. You should all have access to the new model ChatGPT 4.0, which is completely free. If not, that's fine. We're going to look at the differences. But we're going to essentially look at ChatGPT in the sense of how large language models can actually leverage for us to create and generate things like content ideas and help us brainstorm copy. It can also allow us to generate very useful bits of copy, such as, and when I say copy, I mean text that can be classified as copywriting, in case I didn't make that clear. Looking at how it can help us write things such as search engine optimization meta descriptions. And that's a way in which you can rank a website higher on things like Google and whatnot, though that is slowly being phased out with the rise of AI. We'll touch upon that at the end. And also how you can get it to summarize things like articles, and you can get it to create rough outlines for blog posts. So to begin with, we're going to actually wait. If everyone can click the link for ChatGPT, if you can open it up, and if you can put a thumbs up in the chat once you see something that's similar to what is on my screen. You don't need to pay for anything. If you have the free version, that's completely fine. It's just so that everyone is on the same thing. If you are blocked, please feel free to choose a large language model of your preference. We're going here with ChatGPT because, well, can anyone tell me why for creative writing we're picking ChatGPT? We covered this way back in session 1, so I want to see if anyone can remember. If anyone feels brave enough to come up. Oh, Mike, go for it.
No one else. What you said was ChatGPT for wordy stuff, Gemini for data, stats, that kind of crude division.
Exactly. Very, very holistically, as Mike put it, when it comes to creative writing and that's that sort of thinking and whatnot, and as Lewis is saying, we want to use ChatGPT as because we know that the underlying way the model has been trained, the large language model has been trained, is that it's not so specific, it's less formal, but very good at creative writing. It does hallucinate every now and again, and that means that it just makes up information. We saw that in last week's session. But still, in these use cases when we want to sort of create content, it's very, very good. So that's why we sort of recommend it for this session. So
sorry, Faz, I can't get my fingers up or hands up or whatever it is.
That's all right.
I've recently tried out ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, the paid versions, just for a month with each. I found that Gemini is, in terms of dealing with data, I mean, it says regularly, it says, upload an Excel or a Google spreadsheet, form with the data, and I'll deal with it. And then it says, when you do upload it, it says, oh, I can't read this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and it has happened so many times. Equally, it says, because I'm working on a website which is paintings and things like that, so I've got lots of portraits. It says, I've told it about the painting, whatever it is, or the page I'm trying to work on. It says upload the painting, blah, 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 blah. And then it says, oh, I can't deal with faces. So, whereas ChatGPT, I can upload all that information, including the Excel spreadsheets, and it will deal with it, no problem. So I can't understand why you're saying, ChatGPT for the writing and Gemini for the data. Perhaps you can explain.
So what I'll do, Frank, I think you bring up a really, really good point, and I'll give a quick overview, and then we'll dive into this later on in the session. I'm just conscious of the exercise we want to get through, but to give you a quick overview, the reason why we do that is because when we look at things holistically, we want to give the most accurate depiction of what these tools have been created for, and the most informed way for us to do that, and the way that we can actually impart you guys to say, okay, well, in session one, we looked at how are these two bits of information trained. We know that ChatGPT, yes, it may be good at in your use case, it can actually be able to open the files and data and whatnot that you provided it. But as we saw last week, it actually made up data for certain individuals. So that's why typically we actually say when it comes to uploading files and whatnot, we know that on a overview basis, a majority basis, Gemini, in the way it was trained, in the sort of formats it was given, and essentially the engineering that went into that large language model, is better suited for quote unquote research aspects. That doesn't mean to say for data processing, which is what you were mentioning in terms of, let's say you take an Excel file, you upload it to Gemini. It's not the best. There are other tools, whatnot. I know Claude is meant to be actually quite better than that. For those of you guys who don't know what Claude is, it's another large language model. We can cover that at the end if time permits. But in terms of, for example, research and whatnot, Gemini, from my experience and from, I guess, the team's experience and understanding it, it's far superior than ChatGPT, mostly because of the fact that it's directly connected to the internet. But then, as the weeks have gone on, we've introduced tools such as Perplexity, which is also a very good tool for researching. And you also have things such as Agent GPT. So in your use case, I understand that. The thing that I would say that what is holding back, at least for the image understanding and the image recognition on Gemini, is the fact that it's not necessarily the actual large language model that is at fault, but it's actually the frameworks and the safeguards that Google have put around it. There's lot of controversy, I think, a few months ago in regards to the type of information that Gemini, the tool, depicted and spat out when given certain prompts and whatnot. But I hope that gives a quick summary and quick answer, but we'll put a pin in it and we'll revisit this at the end of the session, if that's okay, Frank.
Great. Thank you.
Anytime. Cool. So ChatGPT is useful for brainstorming and developing copy. So we're going to look at essentially the two differences between, well, how can we want to become master copywriters because the actual ways that we can utilize it in our day-to-day lives. But at the same time, there's always something which, we have to bear in mind, and that using these large language models is not a substitute for human expertise and collaboration. So it's really important for us to understand that while combining ChatGPT strengths, or in essence, large language models, we use ChatGPT here for simplicity, with human input can result in really high quality, engaging content. And it's particularly helpful for those who prefer long form content over catchy headlines or ad copy. And we'll look at this in a second. Now, I think one thing that I really want to make clear is that a lot of times, this is where the power of a particular large language model really does shine, right? Because large language models are typically focused on text-based output and whatnot. So this is where you can really tell between the two. So on the left-hand side, we can see the difference between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. This lesson was made before the new GPT 4.0 was created. And I just want to get a quick sense check. How many people see this on the top left-hand corner once you've opened ChatGPT? See this little drop down here, that says Chat GPT 4.0. If I can get a thumbs up if you see it, and thumbs down if you don't. So Molly sees it. Frank does. No 4.0. Okay. Doesn't see it. Daniel doesn't see it. Cool. So over the next course of, I'd say, the month or 4 to 6 weeks, OpenAI is going to be rolling this out to everyone. So it's going to become a point where you will all have this. What I do recommend is if you feel like you want to go back through these through these exercises with the more powerful model, please do come back and watch the recording at any point. They're always going to be on our YouTube channel, and so do try it out with ChatGPT 4.0. But in essence, what it really depicts is that on the left-hand side, we can see what GPT 3.5 has. And don't worry if that's the only thing you have access to, completely fine. But as you can see here, the difference is when someone prompts, I run a newsletter that teaches people how to make money, writing about tech, give me 5 potential short headlines. And let's take the first one, unlock the secrets to making money, writing about tech. But then on the right-hand side, when we use a more powerful model that has more data inputs, is better suited and just overall just a bit, bit stronger, so to speak. Instead of just getting unlock the secrets to making money writing about tech, we get unlock your earnings, top secrets to profitable tech writing revealed. And that sounds more captivating and more intriguing, so to speak. So we can already see here the disparity between the two models. And this is a nice way for us to actually say, okay, well, what are the differences between ChatGPT 3.5, ChatGPT 4? And I do recommend having your own litmus test that you can apply to different large language models when you want to test to see, is this good? So it can be one of these. My go-to is policy creation. I have to write a lot of policies, coding with Codex more than I care to mention. So I always like to take one that I've written before and write a quick prompt to say, generate me a policy around lone working, and see what it tends to spit out. But I'll move on. So we've covered this. The main thing is that I want to put out is when it comes to practical copywriting, a lot of times, they're very much a case of they're quite equal, and it's very difficult to spot the difference. As for when GPT-4 made a significant difference, it's only when things seem to, I guess, headline aspects. But a lot of times when you have large amounts of text, that you can't really tell a massive difference, because at the end of the day, large language models are just inherently better than we are, as we're not copywriting experts. So that's something to bear in mind. For even better results, and this really does nicely complement the work that we did together, and it comes to writing great prompts and writing effective prompts, is that directing large language models to emulate your brand voice or tone, down to the use of things like exclamation points, setting context, directing on outputs and whatnot, and such forth. So it's really important that we bear those fundamentals and those building blocks of how to write great prompts in mind, and that way we're going to hopefully get a better result. Now, thumbs up if you're following along. I rambled on for quite a bit. Thumbs down if that didn't really make sense and you have any questions. Wonderful. Oops. Perfect. Cool. Move on. So, let me just open this. Okay. So one thing that we want to actually do is that we want to guide ChatGPT with specific instructions that can align its output to, I guess, our brand's preferred style. For example, if your brand uses a formal tone with minimal exclamation points, you can provide guidance to ChatGPT to align its output accordingly. This does allow for more tailored and consistent communication, but then there's also something that we don't inherently put in here, right? In terms of, let's say, for example, that we've come in here. Where's the text box gone? If I just zoom out, here we go. So you can say, give me, can everyone see my screen? Sorry, realized I didn't check. Can I get a thumbs up? Thank you, Lewis. So give me 5 potential blog posts about learning to code and make sure the importance of accessibility is there. quite ambiguous. But as you can see here, we've got, fairly good stuff around here. So we've got the ultimate guide for accessible coding education, tools, tips for all learners, why accessibility matters in coding education, and such forth. But let's say I wanted to go back and I wanted to give pointers. I mean, who can tell me any improvements that I could make of the prompt writing for this, given what we've previously learned about structuring effective prompts? Can anyone give me any suggestions?
What's your audience that you're
Exactly.
aiming for?
Exactly. So audience is adult learners, adults, professionals who want to take their first step into tech. Anything else? Instructions and tasks. There we go, Brandy. Very good. So this is the instruction. And give me 5 potential blog posts about code, learn to code, and the importance of accessibility there. The task, list them out in a clear order. But then also there's context, right? So there's context in terms of saying, so I run a L&D training company that also focuses on making tech education more accessible. Now, this is a lot of information, but at the same time, there's no real way for us. We could go through it and say, weight this as being very important. List them out a clear order. This isn't that important, etc., etc. But a really easy way is the same way that you want to communicate something in an email. All we can do is just put a couple exclamation marks and add it in there. And the type of, the type of weight that we can essentially give to our prompts. It's a nice little hack that I think you guys should just bear in mind whenever you want to get a point across. Treat it like an email. And imagine you gave that task to someone, they execute it wrong. The first thing you'll do is reply back and put 4 exclamation points, there we go, around your initial instructions and say, get this done, focus on this, because it's not always perfect. So one thing I want you guys to try is come up with your own blog titles. I want you to take a similar structure, where in which put something that you're interested in, something you're around. It could be similar to this. Come up with 5 potential blog posts, but then also go back into it once you've got an initial response, copy it, paste it again, and put some exclamation marks. Oh, sorry, exclamation points next to what you want it to really stress and what you want to make abundantly clear as such. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to pop it in the chat and let me know whether you saw a different output or not. We've never tested this on GPT-4o, so I'm really curious to see whether this actually changed anything. And so, yeah. And so as a reminder, I'd like you to take it out of your interest, your work, whatever your profession is, and try and craft it and get GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 or GPT-4o to create you 5 different blog post ideas and create that first, craft the prompt effectively, and then go back and see whether actually if you can be more explicit in certain brand points or sort of branding aspects that you want it to incorporate. You can use the hack of prioritizing things by using exclamation marks or points, exclamation points. I think that's the right term. Anyway, yeah, you know what I mean. And go back through it and see how it fares and whether that actually works for you. I think a thumbs up in the chat once you've done that, and also whether it actually made a difference or not. I'm quite curious to see. Wonderful, Lewis. Did it make a difference, Lewis? Going back in and using exclamation marks. Wonderful. That's good to hear. Thank you, Frank. Please do share any outputs that you may have got from it, anything you found interesting. Jesse says, it did make a difference. Really wanted to emphasize what I wanted to make clear. Use it to write a response to an irate customer. Well, Jesse, so long as no personal information was inputted as we covered and talked about in our last session, by all means, definitely oh, wonderful. I love that. Definitely use large language models for that. I've been quite fortunate we haven't had any angry learners come through yet, but I can definitely say I've seen many cases where someone sent an incredibly long email and someone I know has just copied that, taken out the personal information, got ChatGPT to give a response, put exclamation points around, make sure this is answered, and yeah, job's a good one. Wonderful. Cool. Slublock. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name. If you wouldn't mind just messaging, I don't want to butcher it. If you don't mind messaging me privately to explain phonetically how to say your name, I'm truly sorry. My Latinized what's it called? English isn't, it doesn't really extend to that. So Sab, thank you, Sab. That's really cool to see. Sab, what did you use it for? How it made a difference? Wonderful. We'll give it one more minute. Everyone ready to move on? If you're not, put a thumbs down or message in the chat. Conscious of time. Mike's ready to move on. Frank is. Jesse is. San is. Sab is. And Jack. Cool. Wicked. So now we're going to have a look at something which is actually quite helpful and something that people don't necessarily think about. And it's actually the tool of SEO writing. And I want to use this as a context for the technical writing that large language models are very good at alongside of creative copywriting. So to go briefly and to give an example of what, you know, yeah, we'll go through this one. To go quickly through what SEO is, it's essentially a way for us to communicate with things like Google, Safari, I believe DuckDuckGo, essentially different search engines to sort of flag to them saying, hey, listen, instead of you having to read through this whole page, this is a really easy way for you to spot to see whether this blog article or this web page is relevant to an individual search. Let's say, Mike, I'm going to use you as an example, just because I can see your name on the screen. Mike is searching up the best tools for measuring your environmental impact when using AI models. Now, it's very difficult for search engines to go off and look at the entirety of the internet. So what they do is that they create very specialized networks and whatnot, and they look at various different websites, and they'll look at things such as SEO as a first point of call and say, okay, if that matches it, we're going to pull that and share it with Mike. So I hope that gives some context of how that works. Now, when it comes to the difference between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 and sort of different varying actual, you know, large language models, I think it's very important to understand that, like, although the output from the different tools is reliable, and it's very rare that you'll find, unless it's been, you know, hailed as the tool for SEO optimization, it's very rare that you find something which is, you know, incredibly like flawless and absolutely the perfect thing to do. So something for us to really bear in mind is that we have to also gain some domain knowledge when it comes to trying different things and using large language models to what's it called? to allow us to acquire new skills quickly. But at the same time, we also have to vet that and cross-check that against, other examples. So it's a way for us to quickly gain skills and stuff like that. So for example, we're all learning how to be copywriters right now. We're learning how to write SEO descriptions and stuff like that. But if we don't have a source of truth or a community to talk to or put a question with, and also like essentially do a sanity check and cross-reference that piece of information, it's very it doesn't really yield much, and we're just almost following it blindly. So that's something I want to make sure that the results maybe are going to be good, but they're not going to be perfect. And so the way we can make it quote unquote perfect is by also then learning ourselves what does it look good, and this just helps us get about 3-4 steps ahead versus us just using traditional Google. Thumbs up if that makes sense. Thumbs down if it doesn't. And any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat. Wonderful. Cool. Cool. So, should we do this? I'm conscious of time as there's some more fun stuff when it comes to blog posts. Cool. So we're gonna actually jump onto blog writing. I know we covered this slightly in terms of what we talked about, you know, just now when we came to saying, okay, well, how can we set a request and then by, let's say, what we're trying to convey across, let's say anything that may be related to our branding that we place into the prompt, we actually want to actually stress this to the large language model so we can get more of a tailored and better output. We'll actually look at, enhancing blogs and whatnot, and how this actually can practically play into our sort of skill set. So this doesn't just apply to if you're going to be writing about, I don't know, cupcake making or baking, or if you want to talk about carpentry or whatever that may be. This can actually, hopefully these skills and what we're going to be covering here can actually help, make it a lot easier for you to write responses to emails, as Jesse gave the example just now, or also allow you to, craft certain pieces of information that you've worked hard on by yourself and just give it that extra little boost. So there's two tasks here, and it's honestly up to you whichever one you pick. The first one is blog post enhancement. So the task is getting ChatGPT to get ChatGPT to enhance a given post introduction on how, and by all means you can choose your own one, but essentially you want it to enhance how outlines can help writers beat writer's block and collaborate effectively. So the instructions are input the provided introduction into ChatGPT and ask it to enhance the content, ensuring that it's a more engaging and has a bit of a human touch, encourage creativity and improvements on the existing text. And hopefully you should be able to see the capabilities of large language models and how much time it does save. So by all means, please do copy what I just put in the chat into ChatGPT, and then follow the instructions where we want to actually improve the title and we want to improve the outline and, get it to add a bit of creativity as such. Is there a space limit of the content depending on 3.5 or 4? That's a fantastic question. For 3.5, there's not really a limit. For 4, there is a limit. I actually got hit with the limit earlier. I was asking a bunch of questions around a big policy document I was having to read through. I was just querying it, and I think I had to wait I should be fine. I had to wait an hour, but with 4.0, you shouldn't be rate limited. To reset, you just have to wait. It's based on timing. So if that is the case, by all means, do feel free to utilize something like Microsoft Copilot, or alternatively, you can have a look at Claude. Any sort of large language model that you want to play around with. But typically 3.5, you shouldn't hit a blocker. They don't really limit the number of content and the number of requests you make for 3.5. And so the other task is inquiring ChatGPT or any large language model of your choice about the benefits of using outlines for overcoming the writer's block and enhancing collaboration between writers and editors. So essentially the instructions are: ask the large language model to elaborate on the outline benefits of using outlines in the writing. Oh my God, I need to have a word with whoever wrote this slide, man. It's absolute pain to read this off. Terrible English. Should have put it through large language model beforehand to say, please clean up the English in here. But essentially what we're going to do is assess ChatGPT's knowledge and its ability to explain the advantages of whatever we've asked it for. And we want to see how far can it actually go. So for example, let's take one of these, and to give you some context, once you've basically done the first task, you don't even have to do that. We want to say, okay, well, taking this, please give, oh, that's my bookmarks. Please give the outline of the structure of the rest of the blog. And essentially we just want to see that. Essentially it'll be going back through that prompt. We can obviously edit it and we can copy and paste it and say, okay, well, let's assess how well that is. Do we need to give any more guidance and whatnot? Do we need to give any more pointers and that sort of stuff, and sort of understand the limitations of ChatGPT versus honestly, this is pretty good looking at it from the get-go. The fact that I saw free code camp pop up shows us a very, very good well, initially is a very good answer, but even still we can see how, you know, it's given us a very good structure and whatnot, but can we query this further and can we see how far can we push it? Hope that made sense. I rambled on. Even I'm slightly confused, but any questions, please do let me know. Otherwise, if anyone can help me decipher what this instruction is particularly asking, I think this was done such that it was done very quickly, and I need to maybe give some feedback to the curriculum development team to say, maybe get a large language model to clean up all your text. But yeah, give it a second there. Please do feel free to take your own blog posts and enhance them, or outline, get the large language model to outline benefits and whatnot, and do sort of exploration in terms of taking the blog title and say, okay, well, let's explore this concept deeper and sort of assess its knowledge and ability to write about it, until you can almost catch it out, so to speak, and we'll see how far we get. I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat. How to reset account? We can delete old content. You can't delete old content, unfortunately, from large language models. As we covered last week, once you've submitted information to it, it's essentially impossible to get it removed. But if you're seeing a, I think, yes. So if you're seeing essentially like one of these ChatGPT, GPT-4, excuse me, is grayed out, please by all means just select 3.5 or 4.0 if that is applicable to you, and you shouldn't have an issue. So any more tips like using exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, and square brackets, one you gave before? Honestly, the thing that I would really, really recommend is just trying to create and craft effective prompts. The way that we've been sort of, particularly I've been rambling on about and lecturing you guys, I'm sorry about that, for the past, 8 weeks, setting that context, being very clear on instructions, refining, that's something that people forget. You don't need to actually go back and, let's say I didn't like this. I could edit the message, but the whole point is for it to be natural, as if I'm talking to a coworker or a colleague or a robotic slave, whichever one you want to cover, depending on where your ethics lie. Instead of your case in saying, well, okay, no, that was completely wrong. Go again. And I think something that people tend to forget, and whether the robotic overlords in 50 years are going to persecute me for this and have a go at me for this and whatever that may be, but you can be perfectly candid with large language models within reason. Please do not swear at large language models, because that is on record and that's just bad practice. And this is not a nice thing to do. But in terms of, you can be very blunt in terms of, no, you've got X and Y, X, Y, Z wrong. And I think a lot of people tend not to do that and actually be very straight up and, very, frank, to say with, when it comes to like getting responses and sort of giving feedback. So that's something that I really do recommend you bake in. There's been times where, I'm coding and I have like a little coding bug. I say I'll pull up ChatGPT or another equivalent tool. I'll put my code in that is safe to put in, obviously no personal information and no proprietary information, just a little snippet, and say what is wrong with this. It'll give me a response, and my first reply is no, that is wrong, because I know that's already wrong. 100% Frank, I completely agree with you in terms of, yep, as Frank said, if you're based in the UK or Ireland, definitely recommend adding use British English. Everything's Americanized in the tech world, which is really, really frustrating, but hey ho, it is what it is. And so a lot of times you'll see things like summarize spelled with a Z, behavior not spelled with a U, um, and all this sort of stuff. And it can be a bit, it can be a bit misleading. And also for anyone who's not meant to be using large language models in your work, but you end up doing that, and you're in a British or Irish firm, it's an easy spot. I've had a couple learners who submit code to us in our kids learning programs, and we can tell that they've used large language models, not because of the way it's written, most because of the fact that everything uses Zs or Zs, and they're from East London. So like where that came from, no idea. Cool. Thumbs up if you have completed that. Any questions, queries? I'm conscious of the time, and I'm also conscious that we want to have actually a conversation, pick up the conversation that we've had earlier about thingies. I think this is a cool little tool to use, though it is slightly outdated. Cool. Dunham's ready. Brendy's done it. Uh, Daniel's finished. Frank has. Cool. So this is something that we actually need to go back and update. And you know what? When I tell the team to update this slide, I'm going to tell them to check through all the English in this in the instructions, because I'm confused by it. Yeah, but essentially, there's some really cool stuff. Plugins have been disabled when it came to large language model a while back. We actually embarrassingly forgot to update our slides in lesson 1 because it happened literally overnight. But there's something that's actually quite interesting that's happening with these different models that are coming out. It's actually linking it to the wider aspects of things. So, for example, this literally came out in the past couple of days, but now on ChatGPT, you can actually link it with either Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, which means that let's say we want to export all of this into a particular file or folder, we can do that. Please do not do that without explicit permission from your IT department. I don't want to get any emails saying you told employee X to do this, and now they have essentially botched or deleted or unleashed AI onto our entire servers. Because if that happens, I'll be like, I'll just deny it. I'll plead the fifth, even though it doesn't apply to us, and I'll deny it so I'm blue in the face. But in essence, it's really helpful when it comes to, you have large information, you've collated it, then going back to, like how we can write prompts, we can essentially get a summary of all this and say export it to these certain folders. But it also works the other way, where in which we want to say, well, we can pull in context from other files. Let's say you have brand guidelines, you have obviously a previous document that goes through all of the great performing blog posts and whatnot. We can actually pull in from that, and we can pull that straight into here. That's it. Got 1 minute to go. End of the day, it's something which we really recommend everyone utilizes when it comes to writing, creating content. Written word is not going away anytime soon. It's something which is ever more becoming more important to craft well and effectively. I think we've seen an uptick of people just solely relying on tools like ChatGPT, but blindly following them and just saying, oh, write a response to this email without actually saying, well, no, be clear on the task. Having little hacks such as using exclamation points to say, well, you know what, focus on this particular aspect of the prompt and whatnot, such and such forth. So I think it's really important to be using this sort of stuff when it comes to your day-to-day tools and skill sets, if your work does permit that. And yeah, I guess from there, any questions? Also, Frank, I'm conscious that I didn't get to hear your response to my answer to your question earlier, so please, by all means, let me know. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please do let me know. Come off mute, and yeah, we can hopefully people have to stay on. We can have a little conversation, a little chat. If not, have a wonderful day, and make sure you checked in, and you'll receive an email from myself today. Actually, I'll be sending the recording out this today.
So Faz, you said we could share the conversation with different Google Drive, I think you said, and I think when I've clicked on share, I'm getting a message saying failed to copy link to clipboard, could not create link. How do you do whatever it is? How do you share the conversation to a drive?
So I haven't tested it out myself because I literally just covered it this morning. But in essence, where you can see, if you're able to see this attach icon in the dialog box, where you write your prompts. If you click on that, you'll either be greeted with a pop-up that is essentially a folder viewer, computer, or
Okay. Yeah.
Google Drive. Please, please, please do not do this on a work laptop. Test this out on your personal one, and ensure that you do not share anything with private information. Because yeah, we haven't tested this out, so I'm a bit apprehensive in terms of you guys to run away with this. But yeah, just as a big heads up.
I thought that was only for uploading files for it to consider, not to save the conversation.
Perhaps, but that's where it says connect. So I'm not too sure because Google's Gemini had something similar, and it allowed you to actually upload and then export information,
Right.
and such forth. So it's quite
okay. Because I use the upload from computer regularly. I
Yeah.
must check that out. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Any more for any more? Oh yeah, the community. I keep forgetting to tell you guys about this, but we have a community. It's with previous learners, some current learners. It's like 50 people. Randomly you'll see ramblings from me posting in there. But if you have any questions, it's just a place for you guys to just keep having access to myself, Midhat, Arjun, the team. Essentially, we're always around, we're always looking at it. And any questions that come through, we have a guy called Paul Stowey, from America. He decided to start writing blogs with us. He was one of our very first learners on the Gen AI course. So yeah, feel free to join that. But yeah, any questions, please do feel free to come off mute. Mike, I see your camera's on. That makes me wonder if we have a question or a point to raise or something to talk about.
No, sorry, just when I'm doing stuff on screen because my head's bobbing around, I think it's distracting for people. But
No, completely fine, completely fine. All right then. Otherwise, can you please repost the check-in link? I can indeed. Give me 1 second.
I have a question.
Go for it, Sergey.
Yes, this is my first session, and I understand that you have had seven pass already.
Hmm?
So how do I get informed about the seven first that had already been gone?
Sergey, have you checked in?
Yes, I did.
Then you'll receive an email that will send you a link to all the previous recorded sessions. You can find them on our YouTube channel if I show you coding. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to show you guys all the stuff I watch on YouTube, to be honest. A bit embarrassing. It's all very nerdy videos. You know what? I might just pull it up in an incognito browser. So essentially, if you go to coding with Codex YouTube, that's not us, that's us. We do not have 45k followers. I wish we have like 50, but it's all you lovely folk. Essentially what you'll do is that, we'll ignore the TikToks that we made here. Don't watch them, it's embarrassing, but they're also quite funny, so go figure. We have, for example, our January cohort, and we also have our most recent cohort. For those of you just that is myself, that's a bit weird. But as you can see here, lesson 7 needs to be uploaded from last week. But this evening, UK time, you'll see session 7 and session 8, which is the call that we're currently on, being uploaded, and for you to actually come back and have a watch and catch up.
Okay. Thank you.
A pleasure. Any more for any more? Otherwise, anytime, Dunham. Anytime, Randy. Have a wonderful day, guys. Have a fantastic weekend. I know I say this every week, but I don't think you'll see me next week. I think I have a Midhat will be back. But you'll definitely see me in session 10 to congratulate you all for making it through. And yeah, how you guys go about getting your certificates.
Okay, thank you, Archie.
thank you.
Thank you, Foss. Have a nice long weekend.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye.